How many times has it happened to you that you felt the question in the examination is incomplete and you are forced to make an assumption to complete your answer, and you are so very scared to make the assumption because what if the assumption that you made is very different from the answer that's actually given in the suggested answer by the institute?
You must have come across several situations where they've told you to redeem preference shares in a question. You don't know whether to redeem preference shares at the beginning of the year or at the end of the year or in the middle of the year. And in each of the cases, I know it, you know it, we all know it, that the answer would be very different based on the assumption. And here I am answering this question to you, which I've answered it several times in the past. ICI, when it gives you the question paper also, in the baseline of the question paper, in the very first page, they'll mention very clearly that students are supposed to make necessary assumptions as and when required, when the question doesn't give you necessary information. Here it was a similar question in September 2025 examination, which had a preference share adjustment, wherein students found it really tricky to grasp or to make a decision whether to account for redemption of preference shares at the beginning or in the middle or at the end. Or even when they just mentioned only about equity dividend, we all know that before we pay equity dividend, we'd have to pay preference dividend. Should we account for that preference dividend? Should we ignore that preference dividend? And if there is redemption of preference share with dividend, should we pay preference dividend at the end and do redemption at the beginning? Meaning on the redeemed preference shares, we don't pay dividend. Or should we assume redemption of preference shares at the end, wherein we'll give dividend on entire preference shares, not the preference shares left after redemption? So these kind of irritating points come in the class where the faculty, maybe if you learned it from me or anybody else who taught you, would have given you an assumption and made you write the answer. At that point, the frustration that happens in all of your mind is, I made an assumption and then wrote based on what sir told. What if in the exam the assumption is not matching with the ICS suggested answer? Because lot of times it so happened that students would have written assumption X, but the suggested answer comes with assumption Y. Are you going to lose marks in this case? The final conclusion is here. ICI in September 2025 suggested answer has openly given 3 assumptions and 3 different answers based on 3 different assumptions in the cash flow solution. First one, assumption 1, where there is no dividend on preference shares. Assumption 2, where the preference shares are redeemed at the end of the year. And assumption number 3, where preference shares are redeemed at the beginning. In all these 3 cases, the cash flow is different. So in some cases, I say in the suggested answer might have printed 3 assumptions. In some cases, it might not have. But let me tell you with what I know, when the answer is given to the evaluator to correct your answer script, wherever there is possible option A, option B, option C answers, all the possible answers with different assumptions will be given to the evaluator to reward full marks to the student who deserves complete marks, and no deserving candidate should lose the marks. This is a clear-cut opinion, clear-cut mission of the institute to not snatch marks from any deserving candidate. So stop worrying. Always do ensure that you write the assumption wherever it is required and mention at the end that this is the assumption that I've made. Because of this assumption, this is the answer. If the assumption is different, answer will change accordingly. And continue with your preparations. Hoping to see you all do really well in your upcoming examination whenever is your attempt. And do follow and subscribe for more content like this. See you all in the next one. Till then, stay in the game.